A television campaign about to get underway will tell so-called city slickers where their food comes from. A former Mid-North Coast boy turned national cricketer is lending his face to the push.
A lot of city folk think the farm is a long way away.
The son of a Mid-North Coast banana farmer, Philip Hughes, is happy to lend his name and face to the farmer's new campaign.
Look, from where I'm from, small country town of Maxwell, my dad's always been a farmer and my family, and something that, as I said before, very much so touches me.
Alongside television personality Ben Dark, the 21-year-old left-handed bat will help promote farmers and their produce in a new advertising campaign launched today in Sydney. It comes after recent research revealed less than half of the young adults living in urban areas have ever set foot on a farm, and therefore, not surprisingly, don't think far beyond the supermarket shelf.
Sydney siders have the least amount of knowledge of where their food comes from or the processes involved.
It cost the lobby group around $150,000 and also includes a website. Meanwhile, day one of the Farmers' Conference brought along a weighted promise for landholders from the state opposition.
For the first time in 130 years in this state's history, introduced a just terms compensation legislation into New South Wales.
Do you guarantee to legislate on that?
Yeah, it is a commitment, absolutely.
So a major win for the big campaign that we've been running for quite some time, and obviously we'll be running in a lot more detail into the federal election before we get across to going into the state election.
The Premier will have her say tomorrow, but in a blow for the farmers, the man in charge of the national portfolio snubbed them, Tony Burke pulling the plug at the last minute.
Well, it's certainly a disappointment. I don't necessarily regard it as a slap in the face, but it's certainly disappointing.
In Sydney, Dale Thompson, NBN News.
Farming delegates from across the state are in Sydney for the New South Wales Farmers Association annual conference. Property rights, controlling locusts and electricity prices are among the hot topics for this year's massive gathering. In a first, farmers are now urging Sydney residents to join them down on the farm.
The new awareness campaign, Families Needing Farmers, gets a ringing endorsement from an Australian cricketer.
Look, from where I'm from, small country town of Maxwell, my dad's always been a farmer and my family, and something that, as I said before, very much so touches me.
The new campaign is all about drawing the city's focus to the bush. Newly re-elected Farmers Association President Charles Armstrong says there needs to be a change in perception.
The perception is that there's no jobs out there, and for a lot of people out in the country, they've had to come to the cities to find jobs. So it's a case of revitalising the rural areas.
The ad is part of a 3 to 5 year campaign. It costs up to $150,000 for the advertisement alone.
City folk think the farm is a long way away, but it's only as far as your kitchen table.
Property rights also a hot topic. Farmers want a guarantee of reasonable compensation for any loss of farmland. Hot on the election campaign while speaking today, opposition leader Barry O'Farrell is promising what he calls a decade of decentralisation.
We're determined to grow our regions. We're determined to end what for 15 years has been a Labor Party that has sought to develop the state's assets in Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong.
Premier Christina Keneally is scheduled to speak at the conference on Wednesday, where it's expected she will outline her party's past commitments and future policies on regional New South Wales. Emily Wheeler, Win News.
More than 400 farmers have descended on Sydney for the New South Wales Farmers Association conference. Day one saw Charles Armstrong re-elected unopposed as president, but raising awareness of this side of the divide took centre stage.
A mixed bag of issues on day one: mining, food security and water, and drought.
While the area declared in drought is now about 9%, 48% is still considered marginal, and some areas have had no relief at all.
But delegates wanted to discuss specifics.
And the Far North Coast is calling for the association to make policy the importation of beef which comes from a country which has the same rules that we have to work under.
Because we've got to get our message across. We're a declining population in the rural areas.
The opposition dropped in with a pre-election promise, Barry O'Farrell pledging a greater say for the bush under a coalition government.
A return to the title of Minister for Primary Industries, recognising the importance of farming and other primary producers to the state's economy.
Another initiative to bridge the city-country divide got off the ground. The Farmers Association launched their new ad promoting farm life and where food comes from.
But it's only as far as your kitchen table. So, let's grow together.
Property rights was a hot topic. The Coalition's promising legislation to ensure compensation. And there's also moves to get locust plagues included under the natural disaster funding. The current legislation doesn't allow for plagues.
The predicted locust plague in September isn't going to eventuate. If it does, there's any guessing that we could actually have an artificial drought by the end of September.
The McKellar Media Awards were also announced. Prime TV's Catalina Flores taking out the Country Television Prize. Brianna Chillingworth, Prime News.
The state government has used the Farmers Association conference to announce a war chest to fight the looming locust threat. The Primary Industries Minister says this spring could see the worst plague in 30 years. The $18.5 million in funding will include 40 standby aircraft.
So that we can do aerial surveillance, because obviously we need to be able to identify where the locusts are banding.
Last night the association treated Sydney-siders to the best in regional produce, everything from seafood to meat pies.
It's been great meeting with everyone, having a chat to them about all the different regions across New South Wales. But I think we both agreed our favourite was the pork belly.
It's a great opportunity for I guess the rural side of things to get down here to Sydney and stake its claim to being the food bowl.
A North Coast blueberry producer could tonight be named the state's Farmer of the Year. Ridley Bell from Wollongbar is one of 3 in the running for the title.
Ridley Bell has been growing blueberries for 35 years. Not just growing, but creating new kinds, exporting them and enjoying them.
From the very first time I had blueberries, I fell in love with them, and I still eat a lot of blueberries, and we're breeding new blueberries that have got higher flavours, unique flavours.
That work has caught the attention of the New South Wales Farmers Association, and with his berries being grown across the globe, now Bell is in the running for Farmer of the Year.
Breeding new blueberry varieties for warm climate areas, and we're licensing them overseas in places like Mexico, and we've actually got involved in a farm in Morocco.
He'll be at the awards dinner in Sydney later tonight, along with fellow finalists Glen Innes organic farmer Philip Lynn and a Windsor duck farmer. And it seems the North Coast is also leading the way with young farmers. Both finalists in that category hail from the coast. Wollongbar sugarcane grower Angus Stanley and a fish farmer from Palmer's Island at the mouth of the Clarence River, Andrew Carroll. Dale Thompson, NBN News.